The credit alert hit my phone at 3:47 a.m. $150,000 withdrawn from an account I didn't know existed. In my name. With my social security number. Linked to my credit history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I sat up in bed, the blue light from my phone screen casting shadows across our bedroom. Next to me, Marcus slept peacefully, his breathing steady and even. The same Marcus who'd held me through my mother's funeral 6 months ago. The same Marcus who'd proposed on the beach in Maui just 3 weeks earlier. The ring still new on my finger. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the alert details. Business loan. Approved 3 days ago. First withdrawal processed tonight. The lending institution was Horizon Capital Partners, a boutique firm specializing in startup ventures. I'd never heard of them. I slipped out of bed, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The house we'd bought together last year suddenly felt foreign, like I was walking through a stranger's home. In my office downstairs, I powered up my laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs. The login to my credit monitoring service took 3 tries. My fingers kept missing the keys. When the dashboard finally loaded, I felt the room tilt. 7 new accounts, all opened within the last 4 months. 3 credit cards maxed out at $25,000 each, 2 personal loans totaling $45,000, a line of credit for $30,000, and this new business loan for $150,000. $325,000 in total debt. In my name. Destroying the 780 credit score I'd spent a decade building. I pulled up my email, searching for any notifications I might have missed. Nothing. Then I checked my spam folder, my deleted items, my archived messages. Still nothing. Whoever had done this had been careful to intercept any digital trail. The first rays of dawn were creeping through the blinds when I finally allowed myself to consider the obvious. Only 3 people had regular access to my personal documents. My father, who lived in Arizona and barely knew how to use email. My sister Claire, who made twice my salary as a cardiac surgeon and had no reason to steal from me. And Marcus. Marcus, who worked from home as a freelance consultant. Marcus, who had keys to my filing cabinet where I kept my tax returns and birth certificate. Marcus, who knew my mother's maiden name, my first pet's name, every security question answer I'd ever used. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heavy, familiar. The same footsteps that used to make me smile when I heard them coming home. "Babe, you down here?" His voice carried that morning roughness that I used to find endearing. "It's barely 6. Come back to bed." I turned in my chair to face him. He stood in the doorway wearing the gray sweatpants I'd bought him for Christmas, his dark hair mussed from sleep. He looked confused, concerned even. The perfect picture of an innocent man. "I got an alert on my phone," I said, keeping my voice level. "About a loan." Something flickered across his face. Brief, barely perceptible. If I hadn't been watching for it, I would have missed it. "What kind of loan?" "A business loan for $150,000, in my name." I watched his reaction carefully. "Marcus, do you know anything about this?" He moved into the room, his expression shifting to concern. Good concern. Boyfriend concern. "What? That's crazy. Are you sure it's legit?" "Could be a scam." "It's not a scam," I checked. "The loan exists. Someone took out multiple loans and credit cards using my information, $325,000 worth." I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Someone who had access to all my personal documents. Jesus, Nat. That's identity theft. You need to call the police. File a report. He reached for me, but I stepped back. His hand hung in the air between us for a moment before he lowered it. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Who else has access to my filing cabinet, Marcus?" His face hardened. You think I did this? Are you serious right now? I'm asking a question. That's not a question. That's an accusation. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was agitated. I can't believe this. Your identity gets stolen and you immediately blame me? Then help me understand. Who else could have done it? I don't know, Nat. Maybe someone hacked your email. Maybe someone stole your mail. Maybe one of those data breaches you're always getting notifications about. His voice rose with each suggestion. But sure, jump straight to blaming your fiancé, the guy who's been with you through everything. Real nice. The anger in his voice sounded genuine. I'd been with Marcus for 3 years. I knew his tells, his patterns. When he lied about small things, working late or forgetting to pay a bill, he got quiet and avoided eye contact. This righteous indignation, this hurt, it seemed real. Doubt crept in. What if I was wrong? What if this was my grief talking, the paranoia that had haunted me since my mother's death, making me suspicious of everyone? I'm sorry, I heard myself say. I'm just scared. This is my entire financial life. His expression softened immediately. He closed the distance between us and pulled me into his arms. I know, baby. I know. We'll figure this out together, okay? First thing Monday, we'll call the credit bureaus, file police reports, get this sorted. Whoever did this, they'll pay. I let myself sink into his embrace, wanting desperately to believe him. His heart beat steady against my ear, the same heart I'd trusted with mine. Come on, he murmured into my hair. Let's go back to bed. Get a few more hours of sleep. We'll deal with this when you're thinking more clearly. I nodded against his chest, but as we climbed the stairs together, his arm around my shoulders, I made a decision. I would investigate this myself, quietly, carefully. Because if Marcus was innocent, I needed to know that. And if he wasn't. The thought trailed off into a dark place I wasn't ready to explore yet. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. As a senior data analyst at Meridian Financial, I had access to resources most people didn't. I'd built my career on finding patterns in chaos, on tracking digital footprints through complex systems. If someone had stolen my identity, they'd left traces. They always did. Marcus left at 9 for a client meeting downtown. I watched from the window as his silver Audi pulled out of the driveway, waited until it disappeared around the corner, then went straight to his office. The room smelled like his cologne and coffee. His desk was immaculate as always, laptop closed, papers neatly stacked. I'd only been in here a handful of times. Marcus valued his privacy, said he couldn't focus if people were constantly interrupting his work. I'd respected that boundary. That boundary now seemed convenient. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I started with the desk drawers, files organized by client name, tax documents, receipts, everything perfectly normal. Too normal, maybe. I'd never met someone so meticulously organized outside of work. His laptop was password protected. I tried his birthday, our anniversary, his mother's name. Nothing worked. I had software at my office that could crack it, but that would require taking it with me, and he'd notice. I moved to the closet. Boxes of old electronics, camera equipment from a photography phase he'd abandoned, winter clothes. Nothing unusual. I was about to give up when I noticed a shoebox pushed far back on the top shelf, behind a stack of textbooks from his college days. The box was lighter than I expected. Inside, I found a burner phone. My hands went cold. The phone was off, but when I held down the power button, it came to life with a full battery. Someone had been using it recently. There was no passcode. The call log showed dozens of outgoing calls to the same number over the past 4 months. No saved contact name, just the number. The text messages had been deleted, but the phone app showed the last call had been made yesterday at 2:17 p.m. while I'd been at work. I pulled out my personal phone and called the number, my finger hovering over the dial button for several seconds before I pressed it. It rang 4 times before a woman answered. "Hey, baby. That was fast. Miss me already?" My breath caught. The voice was young, breathy, intimate. The voice of someone who expected Marcus on the other end. "Hello?" the woman said. "Marcus? You there?" I ended the call, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped both phones. The burner phone screen showed the call duration, 7 seconds. Would that be enough for her to get suspicious? I photographed the call log with my personal phone, then powered down the burner and returned it exactly as I'd found it. The shoebox went back on the shelf, positioned at the same angle. I left Marcus's office and closed the door, my mind racing. A burner phone meant premeditation. It meant secrets worth hiding. It meant this wasn't just about money. Back in my office, I pulled up reverse phone lookup services. The number belonged to a woman named Sienna Drake, age 26, living in an apartment complex 15 minutes from our house. Her social media profiles were public. Instagram showed a beautiful woman with long dark hair and an endless stream of selfies. Recent posts featured champagne bottles and designer handbags, shopping bags from Gucci and Prada, exotic vacation photos from locations I'd never been, all posted within the last 4 months. I scrolled through her photos with a detached sort of horror, looking for Marcus. He wasn't in any of them, at least not visibly. But in the background of a restaurant photo from 3 weeks ago, I spotted a silver Audi parked on the street. The license plate was partially visible. I zoomed in. It was Marcus's car. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Meeting running long. Don't wait up for lunch. Love you." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. "No problem. Take your time." I had work to do. The Horizon Capital Partners office was located in a gleaming high-rise downtown. I'd dressed in my best business suit, the navy Armani I saved for important presentations. My hair was pulled back in a severe bun. I looked professional, competent, nothing like the devastated woman who discovered her identity had been stolen. The receptionist was young and efficient. "Do you have an appointment?" "I do. Natalie Chen, 3 o'clock with Jason Werther." I'd called ahead, claimed to be interested in a business loan for my consulting firm. Jason Werther was the loan officer whose name appeared on my fraudulent loan documents. "One moment." She typed into her computer, then smiled. "He'll be right with you. Please have a seat." The waiting area was all glass and chrome, with leather chairs that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Financial magazines fanned across a coffee table. On the wall, a flat screen displayed stock tickers and market news. I didn't sit. I paced, rehearsing what I would say. I'd decided on a careful approach. Not accusatory. Not yet. Just information gathering. "Ms. Chen?" A man in his 40s approached, hand extended. Expensive suit, warm smile, the kind of person who made their living convincing people to trust them with money. "Jason Werther, pleasure to meet you." I shook his hand, matching his professional smile. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." His office was smaller than I expected, but still impressive. Framed diplomas on the wall. Photos of him with various clients at ribbon-cutting ceremonies. On his desk, a nameplate and a family photo. Him with a blonde woman and 2 teenagers. "So," he said, settling into his chair, "you mentioned on the phone you're interested in a business loan for your consulting firm. Tell me about your business." "Actually," I said, "I'm here about a different matter. I'm here about a loan that was taken out in my name without my permission." His expression shifted instantly. The warmth evaporated, replaced by careful professional neutrality. "I see. Do you have a loan with Horizon Capital Partners? According to my credit report, yes. A $150,000 business loan, approved 3 days ago. I pulled out printed copies of the credit alerts and placed them on his desk. I never applied for this loan. I never authorized it. Someone used my identity to commit fraud. He picked up the papers, scanning them quickly. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Ms. Chen, I'm very sorry to hear this. Identity theft is a serious crime. Have you filed a police report? Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first, to understand how this happened. Your firm approved a loan for $150,000 based on what appears to be forged documents. I'd like to know what verification process you used. I can't discuss the details of individual loan applications due to privacy regulations, even with you. However, if you've been the victim of identity theft, I can put you in touch with our fraud department. They'll guide you through the process of disputing the loan. I don't want to dispute it through your fraud department, I said, keeping my voice level. I want to know who applied for it, who signed the documents, who received the money. That information is part of an ongoing investigation now that you've reported fraud. I really can't share it with you directly. But I assure you, we take these matters very seriously. I leaned forward. Mr. Werther, someone stole my identity and used it to secure a loan from your company. That money went somewhere. To someone. I have a right to know who. And you will know through the proper legal channels. File a police report, and they'll subpoena our records. That's the correct procedure. The correct procedure that will take months. Meanwhile, my credit is destroyed. My financial life is in ruins. And whoever did this is out there spending $150,000 of borrowed money that I'm legally responsible for. He stood, a clear signal that our meeting was ending. Ms. Chen, I understand your frustration, but I've told you all I can. File the police report. Contact the credit bureaus. Our fraud department will work with law enforcement. That's the process. I stood as well, but didn't move toward the door. One question, off the record. When someone applies for a loan of this size, don't you verify their identity? Don't you require them to appear in person? Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe? Or just irritation at my persistence. Our verification processes are thorough and comply with all federal regulations. Beyond that, I can't comment. So, someone could have applied online? Never set foot in this office? Ms. Chen, I really can't. Or maybe they did come in. Maybe you met them. Maybe you sat across this very desk from whoever stole my identity and handed them $150,000. His face flushed. I think we're done here. Did they come in person, Mr. Werther? Yes or no? I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I gathered my papers slowly, deliberately. I'll be filing a police report this afternoon, and when the investigators come asking questions about your verification procedures, about how someone managed to secure a six-figure loan using stolen identity information, I hope you have better answers than I can't comment. His jaw worked, but he said nothing. I walked to the door, then paused. Actually, I do have one more question. Does the name Sienna Drake mean anything to you? His poker face was good, but not perfect. His eyes widened fractionally before he controlled his expression. I don't know that name. You sure? Because the loan proceeds were deposited into an account at Peninsula Trust Bank. Business account. Registration shows Sienna Drake as the primary account holder for Drake and Associates Consulting. I was bluffing. I didn't actually know where the money had gone yet, but his reaction told me I'd hit close to the mark. You need to leave now, he said quietly, before I call security. I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd managed in days. Have a good afternoon, Mr. Werther. I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. I waited 40 minutes before a detective was available to take my statement. Detective Linda Morrison was in her 50s, with iron gray hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much human cruelty. Identity theft, she said, pulling out a form. Unfortunately common these days. Tell me everything. I walked her through the timeline, the alerts, the credit report, the amounts. I didn't mention Marcus yet. Didn't mention the burner phone or Sienna Drake. I wanted to see what the police could discover on their own first. You'll need to file disputes with all 3 credit bureaus, Detective Morrison said, making notes. Freeze your credit immediately. Get new credit cards, new bank accounts. Change all your passwords. What about catching whoever did this? She looked up, her expression sympathetic but realistic. Identity theft cases are hard to prosecute. The perpetrators are usually sophisticated, use multiple layers of fake identities themselves. Unless we can catch them in the act of using your information or trace the money to their actual accounts. The money went to a business loan, I said. Whoever took it out must have provided business information, account details. That's traceable. Maybe. We'll request records from the lending institution. But these things take time. Months. Sometimes. And even then, if the trail goes cold. She shrugged apologetically. I'm not trying to discourage you. We'll investigate. But I want you to have realistic expectations. What if I already know who did it? That got her attention. Do you? I hesitated. Once I said his name, there was no taking it back. No more pretending this might be a coincidence or a mistake. No more hoping I was wrong. I think it might be my fiancé. Detective Morrison set down her pen. Okay, tell me why you think that. I told her about the timing, the access to my documents, the burner phone. Her expression grew more serious as I talked. Have you confronted him? Not directly, not yet. I wanted to gather evidence first. Smart. Don't confront him. Not until we know more. If he realizes you're investigating, he might destroy evidence or flee. She pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my direct line. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe, call me immediately, day or night. The reality of the situation hit me then. We weren't just talking about money anymore. We were talking about my safety. Do you think he's dangerous? I asked. I think anyone who commits fraud at this level is capable of escalating if they feel cornered. I want you to be careful. Don't let on that you know anything. Act normal. Can you do that? Could I? Could I go home to Marcus, sleep next to him, eat dinner with him, pretend everything was fine while knowing what I knew? Yes, I said. I can do that. Good. We'll need to get those loan records, trace the money, build a case. In the meantime, document everything. Any unusual behavior, any lies he tells, anything that seems off? Write it down, with dates and times. I nodded, taking the card she offered. How long will this take? Hard to say. A few weeks to get the financial records, maybe longer to trace where the money went. If your fiancé is involved, we'll need solid evidence before we can make an arrest. This isn't just identity theft anymore. It's potentially fraud, embezzlement, maybe more. More? If there's another woman involved, like you said, we need to determine her role. Is she a victim too, or an accomplice? These cases can get complicated fast. I left the police station feeling more unsettled than when I'd arrived. The detective's warnings echoed in my head. Don't confront him. Be careful. He might be dangerous. This was Marcus, the man I'd planned to marry. The man who'd held my hand through my mother's slow decline from cancer, who'd been there at the hospital when she took her last breath. The man who'd proposed with tears in his eyes, telling me he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. Or was it? Maybe I'd never really known him at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Home in an hour. Want me to pick up dinner? I stared at the message, at the casual normalcy of it. In an hour, I'd have to walk into our house and pretend nothing had changed. Smile at him, kiss him, act like my world hadn't just imploded. I typed back, "Thai food sounds good. Get me the pad CEW." His response came immediately. "You got it, babe. Love you." 3 words that used to make me warm. Now they just made me feel sick. Marcus arrived home at 7 with bags of takeout. I'd spent the intervening hour preparing myself, practicing my facial expressions in the bathroom mirror. Smile. Look tired but not suspicious. Keep your voice normal. Don't let him see. "Hey, beautiful," he called from the kitchen. "Come eat while it's hot." I found him unpacking containers on the counter, the familiar ritual of 100 other weeknight dinners. He'd already gotten plates down, poured us glasses of wine. Everything so normal it felt like a bad dream. "How was your day?" he asked, sliding the pad CU toward me. "Feeling better? You looked rough this morning." "Better," I said, managing a smile. "Just needed rest." "How was your meeting?" "Long. Boring. Client keeps changing their mind about everything." He dug into his pad thai, the conversation flowing into comfortable territory. "But the money's good, so I'm not complaining. How about you? Do anything interesting?" This was the test. This was where liars revealed themselves, in the casual questions that seemed innocent but carried weight. "Just worked from home, caught up on some reports. Nothing exciting." He nodded, taking a sip of wine. "Good. You should take it easy. You've been stressed with everything, wedding planning and work." "Yeah," I said, pushing food around my plate. "Speaking of which, I was thinking we should look at our budget again. The venue is more expensive than we thought." I watched him carefully. Any change in his expression, any hesitation. "Sure, we can do that this weekend. Don't worry about it too much, though. We'll figure it out." I was also thinking about pulling some money from savings. Maybe opening a new account with better interest rates. "Sounds good." He was completely relaxed. No tells, no tension. Either he was innocent or he was a much better liar than I'd ever imagined. "Actually, I need to ask you something," I said, deciding to push a little. "Have you been getting weird emails lately? Like phishing attempts or spam?" His eyes met mine, curious. "Not more than usual." "Why?" "I got a really strange one today. Looked like it was from my bank. But the URL was wrong. Made me think about security, you know. How easy it would be for someone to steal your information." "You didn't click on it, did you?" "No, but it made me paranoid. I'm thinking about changing all my passwords, getting more security on my accounts." "Good idea," he said. "Can't be too careful these days. Identity theft is everywhere." The irony of him saying those words, the absolute audacity. I wanted to throw my wine in his face, to scream at him, to demand the truth. Instead, I smiled. "You're right. I'll do that this week." We finished dinner making small talk about his parents' upcoming anniversary, about whether we should get a dog after the wedding, about mundane details of a life that might not even exist much longer. He was good at this, I realized. Good at lying by simply not lying, at letting me assume things were fine without ever actually saying so. After dinner, he settled on the couch with his laptop. I curled up next to him with my phone, scrolling through social media while actually researching. Peninsula Trust Bank had 3 branches in the city. Drake and Associates Consulting had a minimal web presence, just a basic website listing generic consulting services. No client testimonials, no case studies. A shell company, most likely. "Hey, babe," Marcus said, pulling me from my thoughts. "What do you think about Hawaii for our honeymoon? I was looking at resorts in Kauai." He turned his laptop screen to show me photos of pristine beaches and luxury bungalows. $600 a night. A week would cost over $4,000 plus flights. "It's beautiful," I said carefully. But isn't that out of our budget? I got a bonus for my last project. We can splurge a little. He pulled me closer, kissing the top of my head. I want our honeymoon to be perfect. You deserve perfect. A bonus. From which project? I knew his client list, knew roughly what he charged. He'd mentioned being busy, but not busy enough for a bonus that size, unless the bonus came from somewhere else, like $150,000 somewhere else. That's sweet, I murmured, letting him hold me while my mind raced. Let me think about it. Take your time. I just want you to be happy. I let him believe I was relaxed in his arms, let him think everything was normal. But inside, I was making plans. Detective Morrison said to document everything. So I would. Every lie, every inconsistency, every moment that didn't add up. Marcus thought he'd gotten away with it. Thought I was too trusting or too naive to notice. He'd taken my identity, my money, my entire financial future, and he expected me to smile and plan a wedding like nothing was wrong. He had no idea who he was dealing with. My entire career was built on finding patterns, on tracking money through complex systems, on uncovering truths people tried to hide. If Marcus thought he could steal from me and walk away clean, he was wrong. I would find the evidence. I would build the case. And I would make sure he paid for every single dollar, every single lie. But first, I needed to find Sienna Drake. The next morning, I told Marcus I had an early meeting. He barely stirred when I left at 6:30, just mumbled something about coffee and rolled over. I sat in my car outside our house until I saw his bedroom light come on at 7:15, watched him move past the window. At 7:45, his silver Audi pulled out of the driveway. I gave him a 10-minute head start, then followed. Traffic was light this early. I stayed 3 cars back trying to remember everything I'd ever seen in movies about tailing someone. Don't get too close. Keep other vehicles between you. Hope he doesn't notice. He took the highway north, away from downtown where most of his clients were located. After 20 minutes, he exited into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Older homes mixed with new apartment complexes, trees lining residential streets. He pulled into the parking lot of the Riverside Arms Apartments, Building C. I parked across the street behind a delivery van, watching. Marcus got out of his car carrying a bag from the bakery we liked, the one that made overpriced croissants. He walked with the easy confidence of someone who'd made this trip before. No hesitation, no checking addresses. He knew where he was going. He entered the building. I waited, counting seconds. At 2 minutes, a light came on in a third-floor window. At 3 minutes, a shadow moved past the glass. At 4 minutes, Marcus appeared in the window, visible from the chest up. A woman joined him. Dark hair. Young. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, and he turned to kiss her. I gripped my steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Seeing it, actually seeing it, was different from knowing. It made it real in a way that phone records and social media couldn't. They disappeared from the window. The curtains stayed open, but they'd moved deeper into the apartment. I checked the building directory on my phone. Unit 314. The online resident directory listed S. Drake. I'd found her. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Morning, sleepyhead. Meeting going long. Might work from a coffee shop after. Don't wait for me for lunch. A coffee shop. Right. I took a screenshot of the message, added it to the folder I'd created last night labeled Evidence. I stayed parked for another hour. Marcus's car didn't move. No one else entered or left Unit 314. Just him and Sienna Drake in her apartment, doing whatever they did while I sat watching from across the street like a private investigator in a noir film. At 9:30, I drove to my office. I couldn't sit there anymore. Couldn't watch their window and imagine what was happening inside. I had work to do anyway, both my actual job and the investigation I'd barely started. My colleague Diana met me at the elevator. "Girl, you look terrible. You okay?" "Bad night," I said, which was true enough. "Want to get lunch later? Talk about it?" "Can't today, but thanks." At my desk, I pulled up the databases I used for work. As a senior data analyst at a financial firm, I had access to tools most people never knew existed: credit tracking systems, financial networks, public record searches. I started with Sienna Drake, age 26, born in Portland, Oregon. Moved to our city 8 months ago, previous address in Seattle. Employment history showed short stints at various retail and hospitality jobs, nothing lasting more than a year. No college degree listed, no significant assets or property. Until 4 months ago. That's when things got interesting. 4 months ago, Sienna Drake registered Drake and Associates Consulting as an LLC. Business bank account opened at Peninsula Trust Bank with an initial deposit of $25,000. The money came from a personal loan. In my name. 3 weeks later, another $30,000 deposit. Another loan in my name. 2 weeks after that, $45,000. Then the credit cards, $25,000 each, all deposited within a week. And 3 days ago, the big one, $150,000 from Horizon Capital Partners, deposited into Drake and Associates' account. The money trail was clear. Whoever had stolen my identity had been systematically funneling funds into Sienna's business account over the course of 4 months. The timing aligned perfectly with when she moved to our city, with when Marcus would have met her. I pulled up her business expenses: rent on a small commercial space downtown, website hosting, LLC registration fees, and then the personal spending started. Designer purchases, restaurant bills, online shopping, a lease payment on a BMW, travel expenses. She was burning through my stolen money like it was infinite. I dug deeper into the commercial space she'd rented, 1247 Harbor Street, Suite 200. The building housed various small businesses, mostly startups. I pulled up the lease agreement from public records. Signed 5 weeks ago. 6-month lease, $3,000 monthly rent. What kind of consulting firm was Drake and Associates supposed to be? I navigated to their website, the same bare-bones page I'd seen before. Generic business consulting services, marketing strategies, financial planning. All buzzwords, no substance. But there was a contact page now that hadn't been there yesterday, a phone number and email address. And office hours, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I checked my watch, 9:45. If Sienna kept to her posted hours, she'd be at her office in 15 minutes. I grabbed my bag and headed for the elevator. Diana called after me, asking where I was going, but I pretended not to hear. I had a meeting to get to, though Sienna Drake didn't know it yet. Harbor Street was in the renovated warehouse district, all exposed brick and trendy coffee shops. Number 1247 was a 3-story building with a directory in the lobby. Drake and Associates Consulting, Suite 200, second floor. I took the stairs, my heels clicking on the concrete steps. The hallway was narrow, with frosted glass doors bearing company names in vinyl lettering. Suite 200 was at the end, the lettering so fresh it still had the installation tape marks. I tried the door. Locked. No lights visible through the frosted glass. Either Sienna wasn't here yet, or she didn't actually use this office. "Can I help you?" A woman emerged from Suite 204, carrying a messenger bag. Early 30s, business casual, the look of someone who actually ran a legitimate company. "I'm looking for Drake and Associates," I said. "Do you know if they're usually here?" She made a face. "The consulting place? I've seen someone here maybe twice since they moved in. Pretty sure it's not a real business." "Why do you say that?" "No clients ever come. No employee conversations through the walls. I work next door and I hear everything. But from them? Nothing. Ghost office." She shrugged. Probably someone's tax write-off or something. When you have seen someone, what did they look like? She studied me more carefully now, clearly wondering why I was asking. Young woman, dark hair, looked like she was just stopping by to check mail or something. Why? I'm considering hiring them for consulting work. I lied smoothly. Wanted to make sure they were legitimate. Yeah, I'd look elsewhere. This place has scam written all over it. She headed toward the stairs, then paused. Though, if you do hire them, ask them to keep it down. Last week, someone was here at like 10 at night, and the walls are thin. After she left, I examined the door more closely. Standard commercial lock, nothing sophisticated. The frame was new construction, not reinforced. Someone could probably force it without too much trouble. Not that I was considering breaking and entering. Probably. I pulled out my phone and photographed the door, the suite number, the hallway. Evidence, documentation, everything Detective Morrison had told me to collect. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Hey, still at the coffee shop? How's your day? I stared at his message. He was with Sienna. I knew he was with Sienna. I'd watched him go into her apartment 2 hours ago. And yet, here he was, texting me like everything was normal, like we were a normal couple having a normal day. The audacity was almost impressive. I typed back, busy with work. Talk later. His response came immediately. Love you. 2 words that had become weapons. 2 words designed to keep me compliant, to keep me from asking questions. I left the building and sat in my car, thinking. Sienna had an office she never used, paid for with my stolen money. She had an apartment Marcus visited regularly. She had a business that was nothing but a front for fraud. And somehow, she and Marcus had orchestrated this whole thing while I remained oblivious, trusting, the perfect victim. But I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I pulled up my phone and called Detective Morrison's direct line. She answered on the 3rd ring. Natalie, everything okay? I found her. Sienna Drake. I know where she lives and where her fake business is located. I have financial records showing exactly where my stolen money went. Slow down. What financial records? I hesitated. I may have accessed some databases that are, technically, for work purposes only. A pause. Natalie, I appreciate your initiative, but you can't investigate this yourself. If you obtain evidence illegally, it could jeopardize the entire case. It's not illegal. I have legitimate access to these databases for my job. I'm just using them for personal research. That's a gray area. A defense attorney could argue. I don't care what a defense attorney could argue. Marcus is with her right now, at her apartment. I followed him there this morning, and tonight, when he comes home, he'll lie to my face about where he was. How long am I supposed to pretend I don't know? How long am I supposed to let him keep stealing from me? My voice had risen. A couple walking past my car glanced over. I took a breath, forcing myself to calm down. Listen, Detective Morrison said, her tone gentler. I understand your frustration, but confronting them now, without solid evidence that will hold up in court, could make things worse. We need phone records, bank records, documented proof of conspiracy. That takes time. I have time. What I don't have is patience. Or money, since he stole it all. Have you frozen your credit like I told you? Yes. Filed disputes with the bureaus? Yes. Then the bleeding has stopped. He can't take out any more loans. Now we need to build the case properly. Can you get me addresses for both locations? The apartment and the office? I rattled them off. She took notes. Asked questions about what I'd observed, what I'd found in the databases. This is good, she said finally. We can work with this. But Natalie, I need you to promise me something. No more following him. No more investigating on your own. Let us handle it from here. Fine, I said, knowing it was a lie even as I said it. I mean it. These situations can turn dangerous quickly. If Marcus realizes, he won't. I'm being careful. Careful isn't enough. Promise me you'll stay away from Sienna Drake. No confrontations, no matter how tempting. I promise, I said. Another lie. We ended the call. I sat in my car outside the building that housed Sienna's fake office, looking up at the second-floor windows. Behind one of those windows was the headquarters of the operation that had destroyed my credit, stolen my identity, and shattered my relationship. Detective Morrison wanted me to wait, to be patient, to let the system work. But the system was slow, and while it ground through its processes, Marcus and Sienna would keep spending my money, keep laughing at how clever they were, keep thinking they'd gotten away with it. I'd built my career on being smarter than the systems I analyzed, on finding loopholes and patterns others missed. If I could do that for faceless corporations and financial institutions, I could do it for myself. I just needed to be careful, methodical, strategic, and I needed to make them both pay. I started the engine and pulled out onto Harbor Street, my mind already racing with plans. Marcus thought he knew me, thought he could predict my behavior. He'd chosen me precisely because I was trustworthy, stable, the kind of person who wouldn't suspect betrayal. He was about to learn he'd made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks later, I had everything I needed. Detective Morrison had been slow, cautious, building her case through official channels. But I'd been faster. Every database query, every financial record, every piece of evidence had led me to one undeniable conclusion. Marcus and Sienna had been planning this from the beginning. I'd found the paper trail that showed they'd known each other for over a year, not 4 months. Marcus had met her in Seattle during a supposed business trip, back when I was still caring for my dying mother. While I'd been holding my mother's hand in the hospital, he'd been opening burner phone accounts and setting up shell companies. The cruelty of it took my breath away. He'd proposed 3 weeks ago not out of love, but to secure his access to my documents, to keep me compliant while they drained the last drops from my credit. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. I sat in my car outside Sienna's office building, watching the second-floor windows. It was Thursday night, nearly 11 p.m. The neighbor in Suite 204 had mentioned someone being here late. I'd been staking out the building for 3 nights, waiting. Tonight, a light finally flickered on in Suite 200. I grabbed my bag and headed inside. The lobby door was locked, but I'd prepared for that. A little research had shown the building's security system was outdated, the kind with a simple keypad code. The property manager's email had been embarrassingly easy to hack. His password was literally password 123. The stairs were dark. I climbed slowly, my heart pounding. At the second-floor landing, I paused, listening. Voices filtered through Suite 200's door. A man's voice. Marcus. "Just need a few more weeks," he was saying. "Once we're married, I'll have access to her actual accounts. The inheritance from her mother is sitting there, another $200,000. We drain that, disappear to Costa Rica like we planned. What if she finds out?" Sienna's voice, worried. "She's been acting weird lately, asking questions." "She won't. Nat's too trusting, too busy grieving to notice anything. Besides, once we're gone, what can she do? We'll be outside extradition treaties, living like royalty." I pulled out my phone and started recording. Detective Morrison had told me not to confront them, but she'd never said anything about gathering evidence on my own. "I still feel bad," Sienna said, "using her dead mother against her." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. That's what made it perfect. She was vulnerable, emotional, easy to manipulate. The proposal sealed it. She's so desperate to feel loved after losing her mom. She'll believe anything. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. I'd been broken for weeks. This was different. This was crystallization, anger turning into something cold and diamond hard. I stopped recording and pushed open the door. They were standing by a desk, financial documents spread across the surface. Sienna gasped. Marcus spun around, his face draining of color. Nat, what are you? How did you get in here? I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. The same way you got into my filing cabinet, the same way you stole my identity. I did my research. Baby, this isn't what it looks like. Marcus moved toward me, hands raised in a placating gesture, the same gesture he'd used that first morning when I'd confronted him. We can explain. Can you? Can you explain the $325,000 in fraudulent loans, the burner phone, the year-long affair, the plan to steal my mother's inheritance? I held up my phone. Because I just recorded you explaining it pretty clearly. His expression shifted. The concern evaporated, replaced by something calculating. You can't use that. It's illegal to record someone without consent in this state. True, but this isn't about what I can use in court. I smiled. And even I could hear the edge in it. This is about what I can do to destroy you both before the police even arrive. Sienna had been silent, pressed against the desk. Now she found her voice. The police? They're already building a case. Detective Morrison has been very thorough. Bank records, loan applications, your business registration, all fraudulent. All traceable back to you. I looked at Marcus. And to you. You can't prove I was involved, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. Your fingerprints are all over my filing cabinet. Your DNA is on the loan applications. You signed them in person at Horizon Capital Partners, didn't you? Wore a wig, used fake documents. But it was you. Mr. Werther identified you from a photo lineup this morning. That was a lie, but Marcus didn't know that. I watched him process it, watched the calculations happening behind his eyes. The burner phone has your purchase history tied to your credit card, I continued. The text messages you thought you deleted? I recovered them. Every "I love you" to her while you were telling me the same thing. Every detail of your plan. How? Sienna whispered. I'm a senior data analyst at a financial institution. I spend my days tracking money through complex systems, finding patterns criminals think they've hidden. Did you really think I wouldn't figure this out? Marcus's face hardened. So what now? You turn us in, we go to jail, and you still have ruined credit and no money. Congratulations. Oh, I'm not turning you in yet. I set my bag on the floor, pulled out a folder. First, you're going to sign some documents. What documents? Confessions. Detailed confessions acknowledging everything you stole, how you did it, and your intentions to steal more. You're also going to sign over Sienna's business assets, liquidate everything you purchased with my money, and wire it back to accounts I've set up. And if we don't? Marcus crossed his arms. Then I release everything I have to the police right now. With the evidence I've gathered, you're looking at 10 to 15 years for identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, and forgery. Federal charges, Marcus. No plea deals. You're bluffing. Am I? Detective Morrison has been very patient, but she's ready to move. I've been the one holding her back, telling her I needed time to gather more evidence. One phone call and squad cars arrive in minutes. I pulled out my phone, dialed Detective Morrison's number. Let it ring once before canceling. Oops. Almost did it by accident. Sienna was crying now, mascara running down her face. I didn't want to do this. He convinced me. He said you'd never find out. Shut up! Marcus snapped at her. No, I won't shut up. She turned on him, suddenly furious. You said this was foolproof. You said she was stupid and trusting. You promised me we'd be set for life. I didn't say she was stupid. Yes, you did. Multiple times. You called her your oblivious little fiancé, who was so desperate for love she'd never question anything. I let them fight, watching the partnership disintegrate. This was what happened when criminals turned on each other. No honor among thieves. Here's what's going to happen, I said, cutting through their argument. You're going to sign these confessions. You're going to liquidate every asset purchased with my money, and you're going to disappear from my life forever. And then what? Marcus asked. We just walk free? No. Then I turn over everything to the police anyway. But you'll have 48 hours head start. Enough time to run, if you're smart. Or you can stay and face federal charges with confessions signed and assets already transferred back to me. That's not a choice. You're right. It's not. It's the consequences of your actions. I opened the folder, placed confession documents on the desk. Sign them. Now. Marcus stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen what he wanted to see. An easy mark. A grieving woman too distracted to notice betrayal. You've changed, he said quietly. You killed who I was, I replied. This is who's left. Sienna signed first, her hand shaking. Marcus held out longer, but eventually, he signed too. What choice did he have? I'd backed them into a corner with their own crimes. I photographed every signature, every page, sent copies to my email, to Detective Morrison, to my lawyer, multiple backups, multiple witnesses. The wire transfers, I said. Make them now. Marcus pulled out his laptop. 20 minutes later, $267,000 appeared in my account. Not the full amount. Some had been spent, burned through on designer bags and trips I'd never take. But most of it, enough to rebuild. Now what? Sienna asked, her voice small. Now you run. You have 48 hours before I file everything with the police. If I were you, I'd be on a plane by morning. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem. You wanted an adventure, right? You wanted to escape to Costa Rica and live like royalty? Here's your chance. Except you'll be doing it with whatever money you have left and federal warrants following you. I picked up my bag, headed for the door. Marcus called after me. Nat, I did love you. At first. I paused, looked back at him. At the man I'd planned to marry, who'd held me through my mother's death while planning to rob me blind. At the stranger wearing my fiancé's face. No, I said. You loved what I represented. An easy target. A grieving woman with good credit and no one to protect her. But you miscalculated. My mother didn't raise someone who stayed down. I left them there, in their fake office, surrounded by the evidence of their crimes, the evidence that would bury them both. 48 hours later, I sat in Detective Morrison's office with my lawyer beside me. This is highly irregular, the detective said, reviewing the documents I'd provided. You should have called us immediately. I know, I made a judgment call. You confronted them alone. They could have hurt you. But they didn't. And now you have signed confessions, wire transfer records, and complete documentation of their scheme. I leaned forward. Is it enough? Detective Morrison looked at my lawyer, who nodded slightly. It's enough. With what you've provided and what we've gathered independently, we can file charges. Have they fled? Marcus's car was found at the Canadian border. Abandoned. Sienna Drake's passport was flagged trying to board a flight to Mexico City. She's being detained. And Marcus? Still in the wind, but he left the country on a fake passport. That's another federal charge. My lawyer cleared her throat. Given the circumstances and the evidence my client provided, I assume she won't be facing any charges for her investigative methods. Technically, she violated several protocols. The recording was illegal. Accessing financial databases for personal use could be considered abuse of authority. Detective Morrison looked at me. But given that you're the victim and your methods ultimately didn't compromise the case, we're willing to overlook it. This time. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. Marcus Reeves is still out there. He's smart, resourceful, and now he's desperate. That makes him dangerous. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Maybe you should be. People like him, when cornered, they escalate. Watch your back. Change your locks. Vary your routines. I nodded, but inside, I felt something settle. Fear had been my constant companion for weeks. Now it was gone, replaced by something else. Not quite peace. More like resolution. 6 months later, Marcus was arrested in Belize, extradited back to face 23 federal charges. Sienna Drake took a plea deal, testifying against him in exchange for 5 years instead of 15. The trial was brief. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus got 12 years. I sat in the courtroom when they read the verdict, watching him in his orange jumpsuit, looking nothing like the man I'd planned to marry. He didn't look at me. Not once. Afterward, a reporter asked me how I felt. Relieved, I said, and grateful I found out before the wedding. That got a small laugh from the courthouse crowd, but it was true. Imagine if I'd married him, if he'd had access to everything, not just my credit, but my bank accounts, my mother's inheritance, my entire financial life. The damage would have been irreparable. Instead, I'd caught him. I'd outsmarted him. I'd survived. A year after that credit alert at 3:47 a.m., I sat in my new apartment, smaller than the house I'd shared with Marcus, but mine alone, and reviewed my credit report. Score, 745. Not where it had been, but climbing. The fraudulent accounts had been removed. The debt had been discharged. My financial life was slowly rebuilding itself from the ashes. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Claire. Dinner this weekend? Bringing someone I want you to meet. I smiled. Life was moving forward. Slowly, carefully, but forward. I'd learned things from Marcus and Sienna. Hard lessons about trust, about vigilance, about the monsters that wore familiar faces. But I'd also learned things about myself. I was stronger than I'd thought. Smarter. More resilient. My mother had died believing I'd be taken care of, that Marcus would be the partner I needed. She'd never known the truth. Maybe that was a blessing. Or maybe, somewhere, she knew I'd survived. That I'd fought back. That I'd won. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The inheritance from my mother, the $200,000 Marcus had planned to steal, sat untouched. I'd been afraid to spend it, afraid to touch it, like doing so would make everything real. Now I transferred half of it into an investment account, the other half into a savings account for my future, whatever that looked like. My phone buzzed again. This time, an email from Detective Morrison. Thought you'd want to know. Sienna Drake was denied parole. She'll serve her full sentence. And Marcus's appeal was rejected. He's not getting out early. Good. That was good. I closed the laptop and looked around my apartment. Small but bright, full of plants I'd been carefully nurturing back to life. Like me, they'd been neglected, ignored, but they were resilient. They grew anyway. There was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. The locksmith had installed 3 separate locks at my request, and saw my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, holding a container. I made too much, she said when I opened the door. Thought you might like some. Thank you, I said, accepting the still warm container. That's very kind. You doing okay, dear? I know things have been difficult. Word had spread about the trial, about what Marcus had done. The neighborhood knew. My colleagues knew. Everyone knew I'd been betrayed, stolen from, nearly destroyed. But they also knew I'd survived. I'm doing better, I said. And for the first time in over a year, I meant it. 2 years after that credit alert, I was dating again, carefully, slowly, with background checks and a healthy dose of paranoia that my therapist assured me was actually just wisdom. I'd changed careers, leaving Meridian Financial for a consulting firm that specialized in fraud detection. Turned out, my experience had made me uniquely qualified. I spent my days helping other victims, tracking down other criminals, using my skills for something that mattered. Marcus sent letters from prison sometimes. I never opened them, just marked them "Return to Sender" and dropped them back in the mail. Sienna wrote once, too, an apology letter that read like it had been composed by her lawyer. I burned it. I didn't need their apologies. Didn't need closure from them. I'd found my own closure in rebuilding, in surviving, in becoming someone stronger than the woman who'd woken up to that credit alert at 3:47 a.m. My credit score hit 780, higher than it had been before. Funny how that worked. My sister's friend, the one she'd wanted me to meet, became my boyfriend. He was a teacher, kind and patient, with no access to my financial information and no interest in it. We took things slowly, very slowly, but it felt right. I still checked my credit report obsessively. Probably always would. Some scars don't heal. They just become part of who you are. But I was okay with that. Those scars meant I was a survivor. And I would never be anyone's victim again. 3 years after that credit alert, I testified before Congress about identity theft protections and the need for stronger verification processes. My story had gone viral, picked up by news outlets and advocacy groups. I'd become a voice for victims, a face for the epidemic of financial fraud. Standing at that podium, looking out at representatives and senators, I thought about that night in Sienna's office. How I'd walked in terrified but determined. How I'd taken control of my own story. The system failed me, I told them. Financial institutions approved hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans without proper verification. Credit bureaus took months to respond to my disputes. Law enforcement told me cases like mine rarely led to arrests. But I didn't wait for the system to save me. I saved myself. And now I'm here to make sure other victims have the tools they need to do the same. The legislation passed 6 months later. Stronger identity verification, faster dispute resolution, harsher penalties for identity theft. They called it the Chen Protection Act. My mother would have been proud. 5 years after that credit alert, I was featured in a documentary about financial crime. They interviewed me in my office at the consulting firm I'd co-founded, Chen Security Solutions. We specialized in helping fraud victims and advising companies on prevention. Looking back, the interviewer asked, "Do you have any regrets?" I thought about it. About Marcus and the 3 years I'd invested in a lie. About Sienna and the casual cruelty of their plan. About the months of stress and fear and uncertainty. "No," I said finally. "I wish it hadn't happened. I wish I'd never had to go through it. But I don't regret who I became because of it." "And Marcus Reeves? Have you forgiven him?" "Forgiveness isn't relevant. He made his choices. He's paying for them. I've moved on." "Do you still think about him?" "Sometimes. But not in the way you'd think. I think about him when I help a client recover stolen funds. When I teach a workshop on protecting your identity. When I testify at trials. He's not my ex-fiancé anymore. He's a cautionary tale." The documentary ended with footage of me at a fraud prevention conference, teaching a room full of people how to protect themselves, how to recognize the warning signs, how to fight back. In the final shot, the camera zoomed in on a tattoo I'd gotten on my wrist, a phoenix rising from flames, rebirth, resilience, survival. That night, I came home to my boyfriend, now fiancé, though I'd made him wait 4 years before saying yes. We had dinner with my sister and her family, laughing over wine and pasta. "You seem happy," Claire said later as we cleaned up dishes. I am, I said, and meant it. The credit alert that had woken me at 3:47 a.m. 5 years ago had destroyed my life, but it had also rebuilt it into something stronger, something mine, something no one could ever steal. Marcus had tried to take everything from me, my money, my identity, my future, but he'd failed to take the one thing that mattered most, my ability to fight back. And in the end, that made all the difference. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.